to episode 10 of the Maple Podcast. I'm Bill Price.
And I'm Hollis Biggs.
And we are the podcast for board game beginners. And we teased you a little last time with the game that didn't quite hit us as well as some of the previous games. A Phil Walker Harding game, as I recall.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead and preface this episode by saying I'm so sorry, Phil.
Me too, because I really like Phil Walker Harding's games, and some background here. I bought this game a couple years ago off some pretty heavy recommendations from the internet, from some Yahoo, Yahoo, that ages me. Some YouTube recommendations from channels that I really like. The website Board Game Geek, I had some great reviews on this. It's a very beloved game. This is actually the second edition. The first edition came out, I want to say, in 2000, I don't know, 4, 6, or 7, something like that. But this one came out in 2016, I believe, and it's called Archaeology: The New Expedition. And that's not to be confused with Archaeology, the card game, which was the original version. And let me first explain kind of what it is. It's a card game. We have cards. Hollis is laughing.
Oh, man, I can't wait
to hold it back.
to talk about my experience. But yes, Bill, please explain it first. That way the people know what kind of a game it is.
Right. So you have a bunch of these treasure cards, like a big stack of treasure cards that are basically sets that you want to collect. So, like, one might be a
talisman.
Yeah, a talisman. And by itself, it's only worth 3 points, but with another talisman, maybe it's worth 12 points. And with, like, a third talisman, maybe it's worth 30 points or something like that. And so what you're trying to do is it's basically at its core, it's a set collection game. You are trying to, you're archaeologists and you're digging through this deck. On your turn, you dig. So you draw a card from this central deck. And there is also a tomb of some sort, either Great Pyramid or there's some other
the
options.
Sphinx, a tomb, a temple, buried ruins.
Yeah, so you have one of these kind of set up at the beginning of the game with its own chambers. And the chambers are just piles of the treasure cards, the same ones that are in the dig pile. So what you're trying to do is every turn you're drawing from the dig pile, and then you are either exploring the tomb by turning in map cards, or you are trading with the marketplace, which is a bunch of face-up cards that had been maybe previously put in there by other players or at the beginning of the game or what have you. And so you're using some of the cards in your hand. You can trade to get cards from that, or you can sell to the museum, which is when you lay down sets that you've collected. Once you've laid down a set that you've collected in front of you, those points are yours for the rest of the game. You can't lose the treasure in your hand. Now, I think it's the losing treasure in your hand part that really didn't go over so well with us. There's these cards that you mix in with the dig site cards, the treasure cards. And they are a thief, which allows you to steal a card from another player, which I don't love, but it was fine with 2 players. It didn't bother me that much. And another one is the Sandstorm.
The Sandstorm cards.
Yeah.
Which are life-ruining in this game.
Yeah, so Hollis didn't love the Sandstorm cards. When a Sandstorm is drawn instead of a treasure, you don't take it into your hand, you put it out, and you either have to give up your tent, and you only get 1 tent for the whole game. And there's 6 Sandstorm cards in this deck. So, or you have to discard half of your hand of treasures into the marketplace, which if you're trying to collect a big set, can, like you said, be somewhat game ruining. I don't know, life ruining, but game ruining for sure. And it can kind of mess with your strategies. But that's kind of what makes this a push your luck sort of game, is how long do I hold on to these cards without selling them? Because if I don't sell them, I could get more to get more money. But if I risk a sandstorm making it so that I lose some of these cards. And if I sell them to the museum, then they're locked in, and I just keep them forever. But I can never add more stuff to it. So there's this kind of push your luck of do I do this before the next person digs, or how does this work? And on paper, it actually seems like this should be kind of right up my alley. It did not hit me very well. I don't know what it was. Let's hear some of your experience. I know you've been wanting to talk about this one.
You want to know what my experience was with this game? All sandstorms. Sandstorm. It was brutal. I couldn't draw anything else. I swear. I had a tough time. I watched Bill shuffle the cards. He shuffled them very well. I want to give him some credit here. He shuffled them very well. It didn't matter. Every time I drew, it was a sandstorm, or every time Bill drew, it was a thief to take something out of my hand. So I have a little bit of beef with this game. In general, I like the premise. I really do. So I want to preface all my beef with this game by saying it should have been a great game in my mind. But I struggled a couple of times with strategy, and I think Bill mentioned this the last podcast, or kind of teased this. This is the only game I have asked to play twice. Normally, when we're playing these games, Bill is our resident board game expert. I am kind of like, hopefully, most people listening, very, very inexperienced with a lot of these board games. So when I'm playing these, a lot of time it's for the very first time, and it might be kind of the only time for a while until we run out of games. And Bill's got a collection of 200 plus games, so it'll be a while.
I just hit 700.
So, okay, 700. My math was a little off there. So I asked to play this one a second time because not only did I lose so bad the first time, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the strategy that I was using, or, if my rating was totally attributed to the fact that I lost so badly. I mean, Bill beat me by double my score. So
yeah, it was pretty ruthless.
Yeah.
I think you beat me the second game though, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Wish it had changed my rating. It didn't.
Yeah.
I just struggled to kind of get into this because, I would want to burn my tent card later in the game to save myself from a sandstorm, but I think we played a version of this where it's like aggravated weather, maybe.
Yeah, there's kind of another kind of a variation that has to do with aggressive weather, where you can use your tent twice instead of once, and so we played with that to kind of mitigate some of that, but it was still kind of a disaster, and I feel like. I'll be honest, the reason it didn't sit with me so well isn't necessarily the sandstorm part or the thief or any of that stuff. That didn't bother me nearly as much as it bothered you. What bothered me is I felt like I had so many turns where it was just, all right, I'm going to dig. Okay, it's your turn. And I draw a card and it's your turn now. And I just didn't feel like I had a lot to do except just sit here and draw cards and wait to get a map card so that I could explore the tomb and get a bunch of cards or maybe find something. And so every, I don't know, 5th or 6th or 7th turn, I felt like I got to accomplish some fun stuff and, lay down a big set and trade stuff with the marketplace and, play a map and get something from the tomb. But I felt like most of my turns were just draw a card and it's the next person's turn. And it just didn't.
And it's not like the number of cards you draw ever varies.
Yeah.
You draw one card at a time.
Yeah. And so it kind of felt like it sort of dragged, like there should be more to it. And maybe that's why I feel like this game does work for some people, because I think that at this point, this game may have been designed for somebody not looking for as many options as I was. And maybe I had higher expectations for this game than I should have. And I won't ever not play this game again. I mean, I'd play it again right now. I wouldn't. I'm never going to say, hey, guys, I got a game we should play. But if somebody's like, hey, I love Archaeology, the new expedition, do you have it? I'd be like, I do. Let me see if I can find it. And I would find it. And I would pull it off the shelf. And we would play it. And I'd be fine to play it. And I think it is, I like the pressure luck aspect of it. With the sandstorms, I think the sandstorms actually give you a reason to place your cards and to sell to the museum. Otherwise, no one would ever do it. You just keep your hand, because there's no hand limit. So it's not like, if you just kept them all in your hand till the very end and then sold at the end, it wouldn't make any difference. The sandstorms really give you something to think about. And I appreciate that it is a better game because of them. They're weirdly mistimed, and there was one time, I think the second game, where we drew like 3 in a row.
Yes.
And I shuffled these cards so well after the first game, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make sure this never happens again. I inserted each one individually in different parts of the deck, and then I shuffled, and I shuffled, and I rifled, and I shuffled, and I rifled, and I shuffled.
You did your best.
And 3 in a row came out, and I'm just like, I even suggested, do you want to start over? And we're like, no, we're going to play this out. And it's
like they act magnetic to each other.
Yeah.
Like they can't separate themselves.
And I know that's a me problem. That's an us problem. It is. I don't fault the game for that, because I'm sure we could have played this game. If we played this game 100 times, that would never happen again.
But
so bad timing, I suppose.
I think though you're right. I was kind of waiting on it to move a little bit more quickly, because I had the same experience where you're just drawing one card each round, and then it's like, okay, that's my turn. Your turn.
Yeah.
And it was a little slow. I think that the way the cards are designed beautifully, but the multipliers on the cards, like if you collect more than one, in this case, I'm looking at like a card that's a pot shard. Its weight is like 1 point.
That's what you can sell. That's what you can trade it for. Yep.
That's what you can trade it for. If you have just one in your hand, when you sell to the museum, it's worth 1 point. If you have 2, it's worth each. The two of them are worth 2 total points. But if you collect 5, you're up to 15 points if you sell all 5. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there's also a parchment scrap card. If you sell 1 to the museum, it's worth 1. If you sell 2, it's worth 2. But if you sell 4, it's worth 10. So it might behoove you to, have 1 less card, only work towards selling 4 cards on the parchment scrap versus the pot shard. But in total, your pot shard, if you collect all 5, would be worth more. But that's only if you get the chance to use all 5.
Yeah, some of the weights do seem a little off. And I think the marketplace can sometimes get kind of clogged up with pot shards and parchment scraps, and just because there's so many of these like really tiny lesser treasures. Yeah. That it kind of renders the marketplace sort of invalid after a while.
I will give some credit, though. One thing that I did really like about the card design themselves is that it does tell you how many total are in the deck. So, for example, there are 16 pot shards cards in the deck. So if I know that Bill's already got 2 sets of 5 in front of him, I know that the most I can collect is 1 more set of 5 plus 1 pot shard.
Right.
So the most I could get if I got all 6 remaining is 16 points. Same with parchment scraps, all the way up to, I think the highest weight card is like the Pharaoh's Mask.
Yeah, there's only 4 of them in the whole deck.
Only 4 in the whole deck, and if you collect all 4, it's worth and sell all 4 at the same time, it's worth 50 points. So
good luck with that.
Yeah, very tough. Because we're typically going for the same 4 cards.
Yeah, and there is kind of the one time I think it's different that you can effectively take more than 1 card into your hand at a time is when you explore the tomb. You could take potentially a whole bunch if you trade in a map, different number of map tiles. However, there's only 6 map tiles in the whole deck, so you can spend half the game waiting for a map tile.
Yeah.
Or if somebody's already traded in and gotten the 1 pile, you may have a map tile and may wait the entire game and never get your second map tile to get that other pile. So you're just kind of like, it's so rare and so hard to do that it just doesn't seem as rewarding as it should. And I feel like a game this light should have more rewarding aha moments.
Yeah.
More, oh, I got it kind of moments. And again, that could be a me problem. But yeah, what would you give this game?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and apologize to Phil because I think he's designed a number of other really great games that I've thoroughly enjoyed. This one just wasn't for me. So this one, it might be my first kind of sub 5 rating, but I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna give it a 6 because I would not be averse to playing it again. I would not suggest it. I would not go out of my way to be like, hey, let's all try this.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah.
Can't relate, but that's so nice of you.
Before we get into the next one, I do have, I read a story on Board Game Geek and the forum that was basically like an open letter to Phil Walker Harding from a guy who played this game. And he's like, Phil, if you ever happen to see this, and it's a long post, and he's like, I just want you to know what this game, Archaeology, has done for me and my family. And he's talking about how, like years ago, he and his family were getting into board and card games, lighter ones. And he said, they played some different games and, Catan and stuff. And they really got into, found Archaeology and kind of hit it off. A few years prior to that, his mom and his sister were in a car accident. And his mom was in a coma for like several months and had some brain trauma. This is not a funny story, by the way. Had some brain trauma and really had trouble with long-term thinking. And she had some issues there. But this game, their family kind of came together with games. And this one game was his mom's favorite. And she just connected with this game in a way that she just didn't with any other. And that's all she wanted to play. And that's all they would play. And they would play with him and his sister and his other brother. They would play this game all the time with her. And it even after the sister left home and went off and lived with her boyfriend, the writer of this particular post was like, I would still go over there, and I do still go over there, and we play as much as we can. Sometimes it's a couple hands is all she can play, but she really loves it, and it's how we connect. He's like, I long ago got so sick of this game. I don't play this game anymore. I just spend time with my mom while she plays this game, and I quote unquote play along with her. But this is about spending time with my mom, my family. And thank you so much, Phil, for creating this game and for bringing this into my family's life. And you this game single-handedly kept our family together. And by the end of this, I paraphrased this a lot.
That's
but
such a sweet story.
I was tearing up. I was definitely chopping onions while I was reading this. Is the only reason I can think of. And it's amazing how this game, which touched us in a very different way, was so inspiring. Which is why you're never going to hear me these days say that game sucks, or that shouldn't even be a game. That's the worst thing ever. I will always say that game's not for me. It didn't hit me the right way. It's not the type of game I like. I had a bad experience with it, but I can appreciate people that do, because for every game that I love and has brought me closer to somebody, there's a game that I don't love that is somebody's favorite game.
Yeah, I love that for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not for me, just for them.
Just for them. So I did want to mention that. We were going to talk about one other game, but I'm not... You know what? We do have time. We're just going to
Heck
be
yeah.
a little longer episode than normal. But I think we need a palate cleanser, not only for the story, but for the game. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the Whatnot cabinet, which is by its art is by Beth Sobel, who is very, very well known in the board game industry. She does a lot of artwork on a lot of great games. And this is by Pencil First Games. And
I can talk about my experience and then maybe have you explain it after.
Sure. Before you do, it's for 1 to 4 players. It takes about 20 minutes, and it says 14 plus. I think maybe 10 plus would be where I'd go.
The Whatnot cabinet, I think, is kind of a funny name. It's the kind of paraphrase? No, wrong word. But the kind of tagline to it is that it's a game of rare, unusual, and intriguing objects. And you're effectively trying to collect on your game board, which looks like a cabinet of knickknacks.
Yeah,
or
it's a knickknack cabinet.
Rare, unusual, and intriguing objects.
Yes.
And you're trying to fill your board in a specific way to earn points. So you're trying to fill your board in rows and columns that either match or don't match, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And then columns that either match in color or don't match to earn points. And if they all match, they earn typically more points than the other way around, or than if they don't match, but both will earn you points.
Yes.
So kind of a neat game. We did play this one before Archaeology, so I kind of had this as I didn't know I needed a palate cleanser before I played Archaeology, but this is a really great game. The Whatnot cabinet, kind of drawing from a bag of tiles that have different objects on them. So in different categories. So like maybe they're all animals, or maybe they're all crystals, or maybe they're all glasses, or vases, or jars,
leaves,
things like that. Leaves, shells.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one.
Yep.
All in varying colors, and some earn you points because they have a little crown symbol on the bottom, and some don't. So, each of the tiles are kind of neat, and you're trying to select a handful of these. I think it's about 2 every time, right?
Every time you take a turn, you'll collect 2 tiles.
Yep.
So, in a 2-player game, you take 2 turns per round. In a 3 or 4-player game, you take 1 turn per round. So it's only 3 rounds long with a 2-player game, but it's 6 rounds long with a 4-player game. That doesn't change the timing very much because it's still I don't know how to describe it, but it's still about the same amount of time.
When Bill was setting this up, I thought this game was going to take a lot more than 20 minutes. I did not believe the box because it's not there's a lot of setup, but there are a lot of different pieces. Mm-hmm. And like you take certain tiles out, like a handful of tiles out if you're only playing 2 players. So in my mind, I thought this game was going to take a lot longer, but I would say 20 minutes was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick. You're really just kind of selecting which of these 5 actions you can do each round. And then there's a handful of, not multipliers, but like additional bonus cards that you can earn. Maybe you talk about a few of those.
I will. This actually is one of, this is an exceptionally simple rule set. A very easy game to teach, a very light game as far as rules, but it's still one of my it's in my top 10 most played games of last year. Might even be in the top 5. I've probably played this 50 times in the last year. It's exceptional for what it does. It's a light filler game. And basically what you're doing is you are using a token, one of your, you called it a meeple, but it's more of like a building token, kind of a player token. And you are selecting an action. And that action will somehow either allow you to draw tiles from the bag or draw tiles from the exposed outdoor area, and you're going to end up on your turn taking 2 tiles, somehow or another, and arranging them on your board. The way you arrange them affects how many points you get, Sometimes you're looking to have all different colors or all different types, or some you're trying to get all the same or all the same types, all the same colors. And you're also, at the same time, you were talking about those bonus cards, those point scoring cards, can give you an extra couple of points for doing something like filling in your four corners first, or having the most crowns at the end of the game, or being the first one to get a column in a row, things like that. And as soon as someone achieves that, they take the card and keep it. So that's their points and their points only. And those can amount to some pretty decent points, but they're not normally going to, you're not going to run away with the game just with that. And so it really is just about arranging these tiles on your board, and based on, kind of what what's next to what and how it works, you're scoring points off of it. And I really enjoy it. It can be kind of samey. It can feel a lot like you're doing the same thing every time, but I enjoy what I'm doing, so I'm fine with it being samey. If it was something that I didn't really like, but it was the same thing I don't like all the time, I wouldn't like it as much. But yes, it feels a little samey, but I really, really, really like it. I give this an 8.
I am going to go 7.5 on this one.
Okay.
I don't know what the differentiator is in the 0.5, but it just feels closer to 8. Like a B+ almost.
Well, you've given out a lot of 8+ in the last couple episodes. So maybe this is you kind of pulling back a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, 7.5 is still a fantastic score.
I would definitely play the Whatnot cabinet again. I know I said we normally don't do repeats when we're trying to get through a couple of these games. But the Whatnot cabinet is one that I would definitely reach for. This one is, part of my rating also factors into how portable things are. This one is not super portable. Like wouldn't be a great like bar game or brewery game. You know what I mean?
I could see taking it to a brewery if you had, a decent sized table and you just had a beer. I wouldn't try and eat food while I'm playing it, but it's not that big, but it's not,
like a small card game or a small dice game.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, so portability, it does kind of suffer a little bit, but it's a good one if you're looking for, I don't want to think too much. I just want to do something familiar and fun and easy to understand, easy to score. And that's the Whatnot cabinet. That's by Pencil First Games. I actually met the designer Eduardo Baraf at Gamma.
Wow.
This couple months ago. So yeah.
How fun.
Yeah. It's really exciting.
Well, you have to tell him how much I also enjoyed it the next time you see him.
I certainly will. I certainly will. Okay. Well, thank you guys for sticking with us for as long as you have. I know it's a little longer than we normally go, but we appreciate it. And definitely want to toss another apology out to Phil Walker Harding. The next game we play by him, I already have it in my head, and I love it already. And so I know you will love it too. So.
Awesome. I can't wait for a bit of a palate cleanser, to be honest.
All right, perfect. So we'd love to hear from you. You can get a hold of us on Instagram or Facebook at The Meeple Podcast. You can email us at themeeplepodcast@gmail.com, or you can visit us at www.themeeplepodcast.com. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening.